Episode number 329, Creating Media in a Crunch with the Blackbar team. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Very light episode this week as we head into Christmas. You might be listening to this episode as you're driving to and from your family holiday. So I hope you survived, or I hope you will survive the family Christmas that you might be going into. Christmas is a great time that we can visit with family, but I know that as a church media guy or worship leader, you've spent a lot of hours at the church. So I'm praying that you will get some good rest, some good time with your spouse, your kids, and your extended family as we have a little bit of time over the holidays before you jump right back into doing Sunday again. It never ends, does it? Well, I was recently a guest on the Blackbar podcast where I got to talk with Zach and Caleb and Nick from the Blackbar team all about creating media in a crunch. You also hear a little bit of my story and a great conversation about deadlines and some ideas on how to work ahead and how to create media content when you're just plain out of time. So we'll dive right into that conversation after a quick word from my friend Grant Murphy.
Hey guys, Grant here from the 1230 Media team. Like the content on our podcast? Be sure to check out MakingSundayHappen.com. There you'll find an entire archive of every podcast we've ever produced. We've even categorized every episode by your ministry area, meaning you can jump right to episodes on church media or production, worship, volunteers, first impressions, communications, and more. It's all free training to help you make Sunday happen. Start listening today. Visit MakingSundayHappen.com. That's MakingSundayHappen.com.
Hey, Carl, thanks for joining us today, man.
Hey guys, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Looking forward to hanging out.
Absolutely. So let's get right into the conversation today. You're a busy man with your hands in a lot of great things, as we talked a little bit about in the intro. But if you don't mind, just so that our listeners have a good context, would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself? Like, how long have you been in ministry? I mean, at least, we've been in, guys, how long have we been in ministry? 6, 7, 8 years? I assume probably a little bit more than that. Yeah. We talked about Nick's age a couple episodes back, and clearly we're not very good at math. So, but Carl, tell us a little bit about kind of what you've done, what you've come through in the media production world.
Yeah, sure. So way back, I was like 18. I was a student pastor for a while, and I worked at like Chick-fil-A corporate, and did some fun things there. And then went to college for a while. And then I started my career at Precept Ministries, which is Kay Arthur is a Bible teaching teacher. She's an older lady. So it's kind of an older lady Bible teaching program, which sounds, kind of crazy, but I'm so glad the Lord put me there, because that ministry really was all about how to study the Bible for yourself. And so I guess I've been in ministry about 20 years probably altogether.
Oh, wow.
And so Precept really taught me how to study the Bible for myself. And then it taught me a lot of production elements as well. And there was some time in there where I did some radio and did some stuff like that. But Precept was kind of my first career job. And then I did 2 large churches, one in Mississippi, and then most recently New Spring Church in South Carolina. Was on staff at both of those churches doing worship experience, content creation, volunteers, that kind of thing. And then in 2015 is when we launched 1230 Media full time. So I guess 15, 20 years, something like that.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. So you, throughout that experience with those churches, you had a lot of hands-on experience, like you were creating graphics, creating video content, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The church I was at in Mississippi, I was the only content creator for 5 campuses.
Oh my goodness gracious.
And it was like a church of like 15,000 people on Sunday. And we had a communications team, but that was creating some stuff. But as far as like bumpers and trailers and promos and all that kind of stuff. I was the testimony videos. I was the guy. I was also the guy that was leading live production at the main campus the same time. And I was like, you guys are crazy. White flag.
It's ridiculous.
And so they finally hired somebody to do the live production stuff. And then finally kind of got some help. But I was it. So that's kind of where 1230, the idea started, is if I'm at this church, this big, large church, and this church isn't in an immediate hurry to bring on additional team members on a creative side. I know that a church of 200 people, there's no way they're going to afford a guy like me, motion designer and, video guy. And there's just no way that a church, a smaller church, or even medium-sized churches are going to afford that. And so, maybe they're piecemealing stuff or that sort of thing. And so that's where the idea came from. And so it kind of grew and grew. And so that's what we do at 1230 Media. We are a church's creative team. We help come in for really a third of the price of a staff member and help you create content for your worship experience. So, man, we love it. I love that the Lord allows me to do what we get to do. I know we were talking before we started recording that you could talk to me next month and it could all go away. And I want to be thankful for that, for the season that God has had me in, and I'll ride the season out as long as He has me in it. So here we go.
I think so many people that listen to this podcast probably can relate to being the singular or the small team of media creators for their church. Like it becomes a lot. I think the real qualifier, though, the burning question is, what video editing software did you use at those churches?
That is a great question. So I started out on Avid.
Wow!
Big guns there.
Yeah. It had a colored keyboard with all your splicing. All your editing keys were on the keyboard, and so it was color coded. And this was Avid. So then Final Cut 10 came out.
Okay.
And then that, or X or whatever, and then that blew up. And so Adobe Premiere used to be like the stepchild.
Yeah.
Sure. Novice. You're either going to use Avid or you're going to use something else. But in recent years, the Adobe products have really kind of taken over. So Premiere is kind of like, one of the standard video editing, and then After Effects. So when I learn After Effects, I'm like, I live in After Effects. I even edit video in After Effects.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
In After Effects. That's how sad.
Yeah. I feel like you got a lot of people that were in the original Final Cut. Like whenever Final Cut 7 came out, you had so many diehard fans, and then 10 came out, and like everyone just tanked. Boom. And that's whenever Premiere really started to take off. And then of course now we got DaVinci, which is just mind blowing for a free software. But anyway, just had to clarify that point before going into it.
It's taking me way back.
So you've been in this field for a while now, and I imagine you've seen the kind of content that churches are producing to varying levels of success change over time. I'm curious if there's anything that stands out to you as church media has evolved and really began in a lot of ways maybe 20 years ago or so, and has changed quite a bit over this. Wonder if there's any differences you've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen us get better, definitely.
Sure.
I mean, when I was kind of first starting out, there was no ready-made media marketplace really to speak of. You might have had a couple of guys, maybe Worship House Media, maybe Gary Molander at Floodgate, maybe, Jason Moore at Midnight Oil, maybe, a couple of those guys were probably out there. But all of that has really come about in the last, 10, 15 years or so. And so you have a bunch of producers and a bunch of marketplaces and things like that. I've seen our worship experiences get better. I've seen the content get better. I've seen our movies get better. I've seen our music. Wait a second.
Our music is. No, I'm just kidding.
That's debatable.
Don't get Caleb started.
Oh boy.
Kidding. I would say more and more content creators are coming into the space. Some, a good chunk of them are producing really good stuff. There's still some not so great stuff out there, but yeah, I mean, I've seen more good folks come into the market where I'm like, okay, I would use that if it were me. So I've seen more tools and resources come to the space. Even in the live streaming area, you got Resi and Ultra Live recently. Obviously, Church Online Platform. Graphics companies have come about. Other companies like Text and Church and our company 1230 and Church Co. and Subsplash. I mean, all those are, in the last 15 years, really strong. And they might have been, even Renewed Vision is in the last, I was talking with Brad Weston a few months ago about kind of his start. And that was even 2000 when they were doing stuff for Passion and stuff. So really the last 20 years has seen a good chunk of what we know in the church media space has come about in the last 15, 20 years. Did that answer your question?
Oh, well, most definitely. So I'm curious. I know it wasn't necessarily in the notes that we sent you beforehand. What do you think's next?
That is a good question. I think that you're going to see a lot of digital content. I think that if there's anything great that came out of the pandemic, is that pastors are realizing the need and the value of online presence. So I think tools and content for a hybrid experience, and I don't even know what that might look like. Maybe it's a combination of some of the things that I mentioned, some of the companies or resources that I mentioned. But I don't want to forsake the gathering of us in person. I think that's biblical. But I do think that we need to be intentional about creating content for an online campus. And I say that specifically because I think that your online experience should be treated like a campus. So if you are starting a campus physical location, you would staff it, you would clean it up, make it look nice, you would rent a space, you would prepare content for that. I mean, everything that goes into a physical
invest
location,
monetarily,
all of that, budget for it, all of that. You craft your experiences for that, knowing that you're that's gonna live there also. So I think that's where we're going, or will stay and will grow in that area. I think that hopefully, if a church was not online before the pandemic and now they're online now, I would, if they're going to say, oh, well, pandemic is kind of, however you feel, we're going to just shut down the online thing and go back to a physical only. I would not suggest that. It has nothing to do with politics or safety or anything. It has to do with you should have been doing it anyway. I think that's probably where we're going, is more tools, more streamlined things to make hybrid worship easier.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree?
When I think of online campus stuff, I definitely have some agreement there and other feelings. I love the fact that we're able to minister to people online for sure. And I've heard someone else say, I forget who it was, but someone had mentioned that like COVID propelled churches about 10 years into the future. And to me, it feels very backwards to have been thrust into the future over the course of a few months, then only for us to say, let's go back to where we were.
Yeah.
I think it was Bill Snyder, Zach, who said that, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are not online, which I love that quote from him.
Yeah.
But we got to meet people where they're at, and where they're at right now, in 2021 is mostly online.
Yeah. I think as long as the leaders that are the ones that are vision casting all of this from the top down, as long as they get out of the mentality of we need to go back to the old normal, I hate the phrase the new normal, but I think so many people are just trying to go back to the way things were. And that's really impossible. Like we've gone through so much in such a condensed period of time. And I really think like the old is gone, the new has come. I think that's like something that we can really embrace and lean into as long as you're willing to make that investment in that step. We have a lot of people that we talk to on a normal basis where their pastors embraced it, but now they are starting to fall back into the mentality of like, let's go back to how things were. And I think as long as they can invest, as long as you can invest as the media creator, as long as your team can invest, or even take advantage of the resources that are more democratized now, I think that there's a lot of hope for what's next, as long as we're willing to embrace the step there. So
I think you make a good point. I'm okay with going back to the way things were as far as how you craft your physical environment. I don't see anything too much wrong with that, but don't forsake the online presence that you've grown. Like, don't let that just go by the wayside. I think like my friend Jeff Reed at Stadia calls it physical and digital.
Nice.
And my friend Jason Moore calls it both and, and it's hybrid. I think it needs to be both. Now I wouldn't highly suggest, maybe depending on your, feel of the pandemic, maybe, I wouldn't necessarily encourage 100% online only, depending on your area or however you feel. But I think at some point we need to come back physically. But anyway, the point is both and. I think there needs to be a physical gathering and an online presence for those who maybe can't make it for whatever the reason might be, pandemic or not.
Yeah.
You make a great point about people churches going back to some of the older ways of having service and people abandoning. I know that's been something that our community has talked about recently. We've had a couple people approach us with questions like, how can I talk to my pastor to help change their mind? And one of the conclusions that we kind of came to was that for some churches, it's just the cost benefit's not there. It's, it's not sustainable for some individuals. And
to be online.
Just because at a smaller church you might need, having a tech team may be very difficult. We were at the beginning talking about you were at this very large church and you're taking care of everything, which, dude, I cannot even imagine. Oh my goodness, that would have been awful. That must have been so difficult. But some churches were electing that to remove their online services because it wasn't sustainable. And I'm wondering for you, in your perspective, are you seeing that there are certain things that are, post 2020, things that have gotten easier for content creators and things that have gotten more difficult?
I think that it's gotten much more demanding, and possibly much more difficult. And this isn't a science, but your average church media guy is responsible for the physical and the online experience plus content creation.
Yeah.
They really are. So honestly, that's why our ministry exists, is to help church media guys not burn out. To give you pre-made content, to help you with custom media content, to give you training resources on how to do this thing, how to make Sunday happen. I also think that things are moving very fast, and so it can be harder for your average church media guy to keep up. That could be a factor. And so from what I gather, and again, this is not a science. This is just kind of from what I've heard and seen, and kind of seen some stats on, is the average church media guy stays between 3 and 5 years max at a church.
That sounds right to me.
So think about you guys' experience, and the people that you know. And is that about right? Is that what you guys are seeing too?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I even when I started my job here at Grand Rapids First, I know personally that it was an impression that I felt God had given me, is that he had said, "Hey, you'll be here for 5 years." I am going on to year 6 now, which is great, but other people, we graduate, Caleb, Zach, and I all graduated roughly around the same time. And I think even then, looking at some of our fellow classmates, I'd say that's right around the money. I think everyone that I can think of, almost save a few individuals, have been at least at one or two positions thus far in the past 6 years.
Right. So why is that? Also, I'm seeing some, I did an interview with a pastor a while back that's coming out with a book about basically ministry burnout and ministry, like self-care. And he talked about like obviously the divorce rate is 50% in church world. So it's same as secular world. Also, you have like 70 to 80% of pastors and church leaders feel like they have no close friends. Zero. Yeah. Like lonely, seriously lonely at the top.
Yeah.
And that they don't have anybody to share with. They feel like they always have to be on. And so just that, and you got, I mean, we've all seen the big name pastors that have fallen over the last few years.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, just the pressure of the ministry's hard. It just is. There's a spiritual element to ministry that's just hard. Yeah. But just the burnout rate, and also compounded with, and by the way, now that we're in this pandemic, you're also in charge of X, Y, Z, and all this other stuff too. So I'll ask this before I share my opinion. What do you guys think is the fix to that?
Well,
True, boy. You open a can of worms.
It's very thoroughly like a multi-layered problem. I think we've said a number of times and a number of things before that we believe that specifically church media tech nerds are uniquely in danger for burnout, for discontentment, for resentment from church leadership and everything, because of a number of things. I think a part of it has to do with there's a lot of work involved, but we're not often on the front lines to see the effects of the ministry that happens. We're often in the back of the room, right? So all those hours seem to just disappear. I think that there is also a huge divide between the general understanding of pastoral leadership and what we do. So when your pastor asks for a quick flyer, 30 minutes before Sunday, and how impossible that seems to be from the pastor's perspective. When you say no, it's you don't understand how important this is to the vision of the church. And when you respond no back, it's you don't understand like how much time it takes for me to do that sort of thing. So I think that breakdown in communication can lead to a lot of resentment on that part. There's probably a billion other things on top of that. I think to me, because it is a multi-layered problem, it's a multi-layered solution as well. I think the first thing needs to be normalizing and encouraging open and honest communication with church leadership. It needs to be the first step in almost every regard. If you're feeling burnt out, you need to let the people know above what is happening and try to communicate clearly where you're at. But I think really like the long-term solution to me is figuring out, and I think I'm still putting into thoughts of how this works. We all are, of like figuring out how to communicate to church media tech marketing, whatever nerds, that what they do is ministry and not just a support or not just an advertisement for ministry. That what we do specifically can be God breathed and it can absolutely impact. Great point. So
and I think
parts of it, I think.
I think kind of touching on what Caleb said, like I'm almost thinking like three different words that are an easy, quick, like just summary of this. And certainly this isn't a one size fits all, and it certainly isn't the answer to everything. But I'm thinking of three words: calling, relationship, and vision. What is the calling that God's placed on your life? How in touch with that are you? And how much is that driving your why? Relationship, how connected are you with, your pastoral leadership, with a community of fellow, even media creators? I think that's important. People that you can just go and complain to. Sometimes there's value in that, especially when godly counsel's involved. And then what is the vision of the organization that you've engaged in, that you've become a part of? And then how does your calling align with the vision of the organization? We've seen a lot of people that are just like wanting to create Christian art, which we love. Like that's like our heart. We love to see Christian art used, especially outside of the context of things that we've already seen, right? But if someone wants to create a masterpiece and their leader wants them to create a promotional video, there's no reason that those things can't necessarily coincide, but there's a lot of tension there, especially when you're being asked to just do something, but you want to create something beautiful beyond what you've been asked. So that's kind of the three things that I think that every single person will have to come to terms with at some point. Like, what is your calling? What are the relationships that you're being intentional about within the organization and outside of? And then how does that align with the vision of your leadership? Like, everyone has to address that. At the end of the day, like, even if you're in a really healthy place, you still got to develop, especially in ministry, what we call grit. Like, you got to be able to deal with things and be ready to deal with them when they go wrong, when they don't align with what you are expecting, what your expectations are. End of the day, you got to have grit to be in this field. But there's no reason that once you get that, once you develop that, you can find a healthy place. But as we see, there's a lot of places where that health is not often the real driving core factor, which, then we see burnout.
Right. And you know what's this might be going too far. The one thing that's interesting is you were asking me how many people are on our team at 1230. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our team members are I'd say burnt out. Yeah. They're burnt out church people. They're ministry folks that are, I want to do ministry without the politics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, I want an outlet to use my talents and skills for the church because I love the church. I wanted to do ministry, but some way, shape, or form, I'm not being able to fully use my gifts. So I need an outlet that will allow me to do that. I think staff-wise, churches have probably have two options. One, either outsource some of the workload or hire more church media staff or creative staff, which some churches either are willing to do or can afford to do. And so, there's I would say depending on where your church is on how much budget you have for creative, there are, and I don't mean to sound self-serving, there's other companies besides 1230 Media that provide graphics and video content. But I would say, if you can outsource some of the workload and do like a full-time and then outsource some that's like a third of a staff member or half a staff member, then that could save you money and also not fry out your in-house guy too. So I don't know.
Absolutely. You're kind of like brushing into the next question that we had for you one way or the other, which is, I think we, every one of us that has ever worked in ministry, media or not, understands the consistency and the extremity of the crunch. Sunday is always coming, right? Yep. Even we were just talking about beforehand about Christmas, and we're recording this in August, right? Yep. Because we know that's coming. The crunch is coming. And as much as we try to avoid it, there's always going to be late changes. There's always going to be things to do. And at some point, you're going to have to turn something around in an hour so it can get proofed and printed and make it happen. Obviously, you talked about some suggestions in regard to outsourcing and stuff like that. Do you have any other thoughts, ideas for how to turn work around quickly under pressure?
Yeah. So I have a few thoughts here. All right. So I think a question to ask is, how can I convince my pastor to give me some more time creatively? Okay.
Sure.
If you're feeling a crunch, then you can't have 2 weeks on every project. Okay. Comes a point where like, just get it done. But 30 minutes before the sermon, doing a flyer or doing a whatever, right. Hey, I need a video. I need it by 11 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. That's unrealistic right. too. So I think there's a medium there. My friend Ben Stapley, he has a great illustration on this. He talks about how he served a meal to his pastor. said, Pastor, I'm going to bring you lunch for the next 2 days. And one day he brought a microwave meal. He didn't tell him what it was, but he heated it up in the microwave and gave it to him. Hey, how was that, Pastor? It was good lunch. All right. Then the next day he had a crock pot meal that he really spent time letting it, simmer and cook for, hours upon hours. And he brought that in the next day and said, okay, which one was better, day 1 or day 2? Oh, day 2, man, this stuff is awesome. Okay, well, that is us creatively. Can we give you a microwave meal? Yeah. But is it going to be chewy and tough and not as good as we could have made it? Yes. Pastor,
Sure.
will you let us make the crock pot meal for you?
Right.
Okay.
There you go.
So can we work with our pastor, not hate on him? Gosh, I wish he would just give me more time every time.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay. How can we come together? And maybe it's that illustration, maybe it's something else that could show him, hey, can I have more time on this? I promise you it's going to taste better. Okay. Second idea here is pre-make whatever you can. So I know a lot of guys that will wait for, I just don't have my pastor's notes. I don't have anything. I'm waiting on my leader to give me direction. Okay. Well, you don't need their pastor's direction on every single little thing. There's going to be a countdown. There's going to be a lyric or point slides. There's going to be the songs that you're going to play. So you can go ahead and put the lyrics in ProPresenter, like whatever that is.
Right.
There's going to be something. So go ahead and pre-make whatever you can and take the initiative to do that, so that when you get the notes, it's an adjustment into dialing in their vision instead of starting from scratch. So,
Sure.
If you wait till Thursday afternoon to start something and your pastor hands you his notes, then you're going to be frustrated because you only have 2 hours because he gave it to you at 3:00 on Thursday. I get that. Okay. So start earlier during the week doing whatever you can. So if you can pre-produce graphics or prep video work or prep lyrics in ProPresenter, something like that, do it. Okay. Here's another idea. Maybe take a different day of the week off if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a lot of churches will take Friday off or even Monday off, depending on when. If you need Thursday and Friday, like if your pastor doesn't finish his sermon until Thursday,
Sure.
and that is going to be Thursday, what if you switched your day off from Friday to Monday?
Sure.
Okay. That way you can work on it Friday and be really prepared going into Sunday. And then you take another day of the week off. Maybe it's Monday or another day. Maybe you can present that to your pastor to say, hey, because I'm getting this on Thursday, I'd love to spend more time on it. I would really love to create visual, give them the why. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to really communicate this message. I think we can work together as a team. I can bring the visual elements to make this a really impactful for our congregation. And they would really walk away. And I think that lives would be changed, not to overuse that, but I really think that lives would be changed if you, give them the why, and then say, in order to do this, I'd really love to move my day off. Is there any way that that's possible? So that's an idea. I don't know if it's possible for you, but it's an idea.
Sure.
Okay. Also, too, this will help you not get as frustrated or burned out so fast. Because if it's always given to you last minute and you always don't have enough time to do it, then you're going to get frustrated.
Right.
Okay, you guys stop me. I'm going to hit on a couple more. So you just stop me.
Oh, this is good. Thank you.
I get passionate about this.
Yeah.
All right. So collaborate with your pastors. So you might plan a quick meeting on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Here's one thing I would do, especially with the worship leader. Okay. I would plan a meeting on, let's say, Thursday lunch or Thursday morning. Worship leader, I want you to come into the control room. We're not going to sit in your office with a song sheet. We're going to go into the control room and we're going to sit at the ProPresenter computer, and I want to go over the songs. It's only going to take 20 minutes. Okay. I want you to go over the songs, and I want us to walk through the slides in ProPresenter one by one really quickly. And I want you to say, do I need another chorus there? Are you guys going to repeat that? Is that going to be a guitar solo right there? Okay, guitar solo. Okay, I got it. So what I would do is I would add a blank slide, and I would add a slide label in ProPresenter and put guitar solo here. And then I would back up 3 slides and put guitar solo in 3 slides. And then when we're live, I would tell the ProPresenter operator to tell the director to read. I would have that ProPresenter operator read that. Hey, guitar solo in 3. Thanks, I got it. Mm-hmm. All right, camera 2 set up on guitar solo. All right, take camera 3. Okay, or whatever it is. All right, so that all that is set up, is collaborating with my worship leader ahead of time so that we can hit that guitar solo. If you wait till Sunday to figure out where the guitar solo is, you're too late. Mm-hmm. Or it's going to be, oh, man, we'll get that second service.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you can collaborate ahead of time with your worship leader or with your pastor, hey, pastor, can I get your notes as soon as you have them ready? Or, hey, I need your notes every Thursday at 11 a.m. Mm-hmm. Wherever you are in your notes. I get it. You're not completely done. Can I have them? Okay. So what I would do is I would take those notes and I would look through them and I would say, oh, sermon illustration. Okay. So like I remember one instance where I was consulting this church and I got pastor's notes and he had an illustration about scissors. Okay. So I went on, pulled a photo of scissors, stock photo. I had rights to all that. Pull a photo of scissors and I put it into ProPresenter at the exact moment that he's going to talk about it. And I went over to him and I said, hey, when you talk about the scissors, remember that illustration? That's right. I read your sermon. When you talk about the scissors, I'm going to put up a picture of scissors. Okay. Or let's say you referenced a mission trip that we went on 2 years ago to Ecuador. Well, pastor, on Thursday afternoon, I put a 60-second clip of the mission trip that we went on so that people could see faces of the lives that were changed when we were in Ecuador. And so when you start talking about that, there's not going to be any sound, but we're just going to come on with the footage of Ecuador. And it's going to be a soft roll for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, however long. Then we're going to take that out. Yeah. Okay. So you can reference that if you want to and say, man, see that little kid there? I remember that kid. He gave his life to Christ. It puts a visual with. But you wouldn't have time to do that on Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. Sure. You did that because you got the notes on Thursday morning, even if he wasn't done with the sermon. So collaborate. So I got a couple more, but I'll stop here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel like what's interesting about each of the things that you're talking about, you're talking mainly about pre-production. Media people, we love the production. We love the post-production. We love to get in there with the camera. We love to get in there on the ground floor. We love to make the graphic design. But man, each of those topics, that's pre-production right there, folks. If you can just, I know you don't feel like you have time, but if you can build time out of your week to do some pre-planning, like that's literally every single thing that Carl just shared. It's pre-planning and proactive planning and maybe a bit of adjustment. But I mean, I feel like just taking the extra time, investing it into pre-production will buy you so much time. And I think that's like the core here. Like if you can invest that, the extra dividends that you'll pull from that will be massively beneficial for your ministry.
Yeah. Right. I think a lot of it comes down to communicating to your pastors and to your staff the value of giving you more time. Like absolutely, I can make you something in an hour if you need it. It's going to be in Microsoft Word, and we're going to use Arial. But if you give me the time, look at what I could do. Look at what is possible. We actually we have put it at my church. We have a system now where I know, Carl, you were talking about you're not going to get 2 weeks on everything. At my church now, the rule is we do get 3 weeks on literally everything, and there are certainly exceptions to where, like, senior pastor comes in the rooms like, I need something for Sunday, and this is sure, and we're there for that. But as a general rule of thumb, if we don't get something 3 weeks out, then either your announcement is getting pushed back or you're not getting what you're asked for the most part. Right. And as much as I'm happy we finally have that system in place, it took years of convincing the people that I am now asking for that 3 weeks from, that those 3 weeks are absolutely worth it, right? Like you're not going to be able to just jump in and say, hey, pastor, I need 3 week sermons ahead of time. Like that is never going to happen. But if you can communicate like what you're doing in those 3 weeks and the value that they're going to get out of that, I mean,
and I'm hearing from that intentionality and relationship. Like that's key stuff, especially building that relationship with your lead pastor. Oh man. And to use Carl, your illustration from earlier, it sounds like you just need to sit your whole staff down and serve them microwave lunches
right,
one day.
right, yeah. It'll be
and then feed them well the next day.
Yeah.
Right.
As a company, if a church is on retainer with us, we ask for 3 weeks at least.
Yeah.
And we actually tell them, I'm gonna give the secret sauce here. We actually tell the church contact, use us and throw us under the bus if you need to. Okay. So 1230 Media needs 3 weeks to get it done, and it's going to be awesome. But they have a deadline, and so I need to get this over to them 3 weeks ahead of time,
right?
Or they can't make it.
Mm-hmm.
We probably will, and we can.
Yeah.
But if you need to use us to throw us under the bus so that you look better with you, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. Let me hit. If you don't mind, I'm gonna hit on this one, and you hit on this a little bit, Caleb. Is grace and collaboration with your team.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things I should hit on here. Don't throw your worship leader or your pastor under the bus in front of your volunteers.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of this in the control room.
Yeah.
I cannot. If he turns that chorus one more time, this is not how he put it in. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It looks terrible, and it looks like you guys are not a team together.
Right.
Or on the flip side of that, pastor, if you're on stage, and people get tired of me using this illustration, but do not, if you're a worship leader or a pastor, do not throw your tech team under the bus because you have the microphone. Mm-hmm. Please, please, please don't do that. If you just trust that the team is working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say, not that slide, the other one, or we'll just wait.
Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Maybe this video will play sometime. Don't, please stop doing that.
Yeah.
Because would you want to serve if you're a volunteer and you're trying to find the video in ProPresenter with your mouse that's lost on the second screen, and your pastor from the stage is going, video will play sometime.
Yeah.
Would that make me want to serve? No way. I'd be out of there completely.
Yeah. Right.
So that's a conversation that I, as the church media guy, would have with my pastor and say, I promise you, I have it taken care of. And if it does not play, there is a reason not under our control that it's not playing. So if you would just please say, man, our tech team does such a great job. You guys know how technology is. Let's move on, and I'm sure they'll send me a message because they are incredible about doing that. That when it's ready, and I'll call on it when it's ready. All right, let's go on to the next point. Just please do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to get really loud about that one because on both sides we need to be a team, especially now, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, we are losing. Not everybody's coming back to church because of the pandemic. This is a time where we all need to be. I mean, we're in war together. We do not need to be on separate sides.
Yeah, I appreciate, like you were saying, that in a lot of ways you're talking about respect is a two-way street for the most part. We need to be on the same team together. I know we've talked a lot to our media people and our audience and everything about doing that, but we have a huge number of what we've called media desperate pastors that also watch our content and are as part of our community. And absolutely, when you have that team, the best way to make sure that even when they have like pot roast time that they're not giving you microwave stuff is to let them know that the pot roast is going to be worth the pot roast is going to be worth it, right? That you want them on the team, you want them bought into the vision, and that's not going to happen if you're ready to drag them on stage every time they flip to the wrong lyric. So I really appreciate that move. Carl, I really appreciate you coming out today and talking about everything. Obviously you have a wealth of knowledge knowledge, and I'm thankful that you're able to share it with our community. Every time we have one of our guests on, we like to do what we call a bit of shameless self-promotion, where you can talk about anything you would like to close out this podcast. And I know you have a handful of things going on over there.
Yeah.
What would you like to talk about today?
Well, it's that's fine. The self-promoting thing. Okay, put me on the spot here. I would say, as it relates to content in a crunch, you can use ready-made media content. So if you are a church media guy that has trouble or that is, in high demand, the demands are going up on you. You are in a crunch for time. You always feel like you don't have enough time to get things done.
Yeah.
I would say two things. One, use ready-made media content. You don't have to use us at 1230 Media. We have a library of stuff you can use, but there is a multitude of great content creators out there, marketplaces out there that we sell our content on and other great producers are on, that you can get pre-made content. Don't try to reinvent the wheel every time. Pull the trigger on a couple of subscriptions and help yourself out. Yeah. That's one. I would say two, if there is any way that you can outsource custom work, do it. And here's what I would encourage you to spend your time on. Pastoring your volunteers, number one.
There you go.
Okay?
Yeah.
I cannot, as a media company, and other media companies are not where you are with your volunteers. Only you are.
Yeah.
And the number one secret sauce to building a volunteer team is pastoring your people well. Yeah. So I would much rather you spend time with your volunteers pastoring them than tinkering with Photoshop for 5 hours trying to get that graphic right. Okay. Sure. Outsource the graphic and outsource the video. Now, come to us, great. Go to somebody else, great. But help yourself out and outsource what you can. Outsource things like series graphics and videos, openers, lyric videos, and you do volunteers. You do life change stories that only you can be there interviewing the life change story. Projects like that only you can do. That's what you need to be spending your time on. And then try to, if you can, outsource the rest, even if it's little bit by little bit. Hey, Pastor, can I get a little bit in the budget next year so that we can do, I can outsource the sermon series branding. And here's why. I think that I can grow the volunteer team. I think I can pastor them well. Give them the why. So I don't know if that's self-promotion or not. Maybe, you guys can certainly use us at 1230 Media if we'll be a help to you in those areas. But I would say at the end of the day, if you can find those ways any ways that we've talked about today to not fry yourself out, we need you in ministry.
Yes.
So if you fry out, we do not want to leave you on the battlefield. I have a political reference there. I will not say it. I promise you, I will not say it. So we won't. We don't need you to drop down. We need you in the fight. So anything we can do to keep you in the fight. Maybe that was a long answer, but
no, I appreciate it, man. Carl, thank you so much for being on today.
You guys rock. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. So you guys will be able to find a link to 1230 Media in the show notes. Make sure to check them out. And make sure to listen to Carl's podcast. Carl, I know that you touched mostly on 1230. Can you give us like a minute pitch on what you guys talk about on your podcast?
Yes. So we've been at the podcast since 2015. So it's weekly and it's mainly interviews. So I'm interviewing worship leaders and I'm interviewing pastors and church leaders and ministry guys in the trenches. So not just like the names that you see at every conference.
Yes. Yeah.
But actual people in the trenches doing the work too. And so, that's, production, worship leading, pastoring, sermon prep, service, self-care kind of stuff. How can we take care of ourselves so we can do ministry, volunteers, all that kind of stuff. It's called Making Sunday Happen. It's everywhere you get podcasts.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure that Making Sunday Happen is also linked in the show notes. And that has been our conversation with Carl. Buddy, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on. And everyone, make sure you check out those links. And until next time, this has been Zach and
Caleb.
And Nick.
I was not expecting that.
Nick, if we use the Zoom recording.
and our guest today.
Hey, thanks, guys, so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Does your team of instrumentalists, singers, and technicians, the team who are tasked with inviting your church congregation to worship God through songs, do they know what the goal is? Is there an agreed, humanly measurable goal? Yes, we want God to be worshipped, I'm sure of that, but is there something more tangible that we can measure? You see, if a team of people does not have a goal that we can all agree upon and measure whether we've succeeded or failed, then we actually have no goal at all. You know, a heavy metal band knows what the goal is. They'll know they've done a good job if the crowd, the audience, is pressed up against the barrier, banging their heads, probably with their rock fists in the air. That'll tell them they've done a good job. A dance band knows they've done a good job if the dance floor is full. A classical orchestra knows they've done a good job if the audience listens in complete motionless silence, even between the movements. And after that third movement, the audience will applaud, maybe even stand to their feet, giving a standing ovation and maybe even say a few bravos. But I found that the typical team of church instrumentalists, singers and technicians have very different goals. People are tugging in all different directions. And so I'd suggest that we must find what our goal is. What is the observable objective that we're looking for in the room that tells us whether we've done a good job or not? And for me, that is to get the congregation singing. This is not some sort of concert. We're not trying to enthrall our audience. We're not trying to fill a dance floor. We're not trying to get people to headbang. We want people to sing these songs as an expression of worship to God. Sing prayers, sing praises of God, sing declarations of truth about God. And yes, that might be just the bottom rung on the ladder. We might want more than just people singing, but that is a great observable outcome that we can be shooting for. Have this observable goal in your team, and I believe that a great deal of unity will be a happy byproduct. My name is Grant Norsworthy from More Than Music Mentor. I provide online and on-site training for the heart and the art of worshiping musicians. Find out more at morethanmusicmentor.com.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Well, hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out this week. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with the Blackbar team, just laughing and having a good time with us. Next week on the show, we're going to do something similar in that we're having several members of the 1230 media team on the show. We're going to do kind of a year in review of some of the good things that we've seen over the past year, as well as share some struggles that people have had in the church world, and also talk about where we might be headed as a church in terms of church media, in terms of how we're crafting our worship experiences both online and in person. We'll talk about all that next week on the show. We'll go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.